Hi, I'm Tamara Haynes with the American Quilter magazine, and I'm here today at Quilt Week, and we wanted to introduce you to this very innovative notion. I'm with David Caulder, and this product is called the Thread Director, and I'm going to let him show you all about the reasons why you need it for your machine and what it can do to increase your creativity.
Hi, I'm David Caulder from Notions You Need, and what I'm going to be showing you today is a little product that is called the Thread Director. And what it is are little accessory spool pins that you are able to mount to the top of your sewing machine that basically changes how your thread goes on your machine. And what I mean by that is everybody who sews knows that thread is wound on from the side. It's supposed to come off from the side. If you have a machine with a vertical spool pin, your thread sits like that and it comes off exactly like it was wound onto the spool. Now, if you imagine this is a spool of thread, okay? It's wound on like this, it's supposed to come off like this. So again, if you have a machine with a vertical spool pin, it's operating exactly as it was designed. Unfortunately, a lot of machines nowadays have spool pins like this. And what happens is now you take your side wound thread or stacked spool of thread and you put it on your machine like that, and now it comes off the end. What happens when it comes off the end? Instead of coming off the side, and now it's coming off the end and it twists. And twisting is just not good for almost anything you do. So for starters, if your thread is twisted, it creates a lot of problems. If your thread is twisted going into your stitch, first of all, you're putting way too much thread into your stitch. And it creates buckling, weaving, waving, puckering, all kinds of problems. So why this is important is if you're a quilter, what you really want is the most uniform stitch you can get. If your stitch is twisted and you imagine a piece of yarn and you take the yarn and you twist it, what happens? It gets skinnier and it gets shorter. When you let it go, what happens? It bounces back. Well, your stitch is doing the same thing. So if you're doing piecework, your blocks don't line up as well. And you're tugging them, you're pulling them, you're ironing them, you're messing with them, you're trying to get your points to match and they just don't. If your thread is untwisted, then what happens is everything lines up a little better. Your project turns out a little better and it's a little easier to do, and the end result is just more fun. The next thing it does, again, if you are pulling the thread over the end of the cap, these caps are not smooth. And what happens a lot of times is the thread ends up tugging on the cap and you have the same problem. So if it's not tugging, you get a nice even stitch. If it's tugging, it's messing with the tension, and now your stitches again are not uniform. When you get down to the end, it really starts pulling, and I know a lot of you have had this problem. That again messes up your stitch. So by simply taking your spool and mounting it this way, you eliminate a lot of problems. The first one, going back to our big spool of thread, is that when you mount it this way, now it's coming off the spool the way it was put on. It's coming off from the side. It's going through the thread path and the tension disc untwisted. What that does for you now is, in addition to having uniform stitches, it allows you to do a lot of fun projects. For example, we're doing what's called freestanding lace, okay? So we're using water-soluble stabilizer. When you put that in water, it just dissolves and goes away. And we're doing free motion using metallic and 12-weight cotton. Now, a lot of you are gonna go, that's impossible because metallic breaks like crazy. Well, when your thread is coming off from the side and it's going through the thread path and tension disc untwisted, guess what happens? It stops breaking. The twist is what causes it to break. So, I don't really sew, but my wife doesn't like to be on camera, so I'm going to show you how this is done. And again, metallic and cotton through a single eye top stitch needle, 116, and By now, the metallic thread should have broken, well, see, this is why I'm not allowed to sew. The metallic thread should have broken about 6 or 7 times. But you can see throughout this, it just goes and it goes and it goes. So by having your thread come off the machine the way the thread was put on the spool, now the machine is operating the way the machine was designed, and you're able to use things like metallic, polyester, invisible thread without them breaking. To give you an example, that is 128,000 stitches of metallic thread. And to demonstrate that it's not the type of thread you use or the brand you use, that's using Madeira, Floriani, Robertson Anton, Wonderfill, and Sulky thread. Not a single break. You can do things like this if you really want to get creative. This is called serger crochet. And the idea behind that is you could just use cotton thread, but if you use metallic thread, you're able to make it a little, as they say, bling it up, a little flashy. And who doesn't like flash? So by simply adding either a single spool thread director or double spool thread director to your sewing machine, you're gonna make your machine operate the way it's supposed to. The thread's not twisted. And they go on any sewing machine ever made. So on this particular machine, it's on the bobbin winder. But if you have a bobbin winder, which almost all machines do, on the top, some of them on the front, or you have one with a vertical spool pin, or both, it goes on the bobbin winder or the vertical spool pin, and it really, really, truly makes your machine operate and behave with thread the way it's supposed to.
Thank you so much, David, for showing us this amazing product that can really increase our creative options when sewing. And thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you the next product spotlight from the American Quilter magazine.